Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. I do not have any visuals. I'm very tangible. No PowerPoint here. But I did bring my first toy ever, a Fisher-Price airplane, complete with dog bites. It opens by itself. So I'll just put this right here. And I want you guys to think about that. So some days I consider myself a producer. Other days I can be a consultant. Most of the time I just consider myself an artist. But today I have a new hat to wear on top of this wonderful hair, and it's just being creative and yours. Today I want to talk about something that I'm very passionate about, and it's about communication and the power that it has to construct illusions. But most importantly, I want to emphasize on language. Scholars would define language as a set of sounds, utterances, linguistic codes that convey meaning. I would disagree. Language is not just limited to what we hear, but language can also be influenced by what we see, specifically by how we feel. Have any of you guys ever been in a situation where your language was worth nothing? Where you tried to speak your wonderful American English and people would just stare at you and be like, It's happened to me many, many, many times. And it's because I put myself in situations that are awkward. And I feel that awkward situations help us grow. And the way that I started putting myself in these awkward situations was at the tender age of 3, when I discovered my mom's atlas, and the age at which I also received my Fisher-Price airplane. I used to go on these imaginary voyages to all these different countries and pretend to take on their different customs and traditions, their dances, their rituals, and I thought I knew what I was doing, and I thought I was saying their names right, and I thought I knew every geographical aspect that was about that country on that map. I never really had the opportunity to explore anything until I turned 18. Although I grew up in Puerto Rico, that was pretty much all I knew. Even America was a stranger to me, believe it or not. Disney Channel was my source of American information. Kids' Choice Awards ruled my childhood. And Are You Afraid of the Dark was scary to me. I watch it now, and I am not afraid. You shouldn't be either. But where I'm going with this is that my concept of the world was very, very limited. I knew that something was out there. I just didn't know how to get there. When I first arrived in college, I said, I'm going to go to Syracuse. I'm going to see how this works out. I didn't do a college visit. I saw it at the age of 12 on Regis and Kelly, and I said, hey, if that's what college looks like, I want to go there. And I showed up. And I showed up greeting people with 2 kisses on the cheek, and they're like, whoa, bubble. I am not about that life. So things changed rather quickly, and I became offended. But at the age of 20, I started to reflect on my childhood as I was trying to figure out what my major actually was, Communication and Rhetorical Studies. That really doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people when I say that. Does it make sense to you guys? We struggle with it, don't we? It's okay, we all struggle with something. But I was trying to figure it out, and I realized that the best way for me to figure it out was to put myself out there, to explore something that I didn't know, and I started regressing to my childhood. And I started to remember this region called the Balkans, specifically Serbia and Kosovo. But I didn't remember it as Serbia and Kosovo. I remembered it as Yugoslavia. Then I started to remember, wait, there's a couple name changes going on here. 2006, Yugoslavia turned into Serbia and Montenegro. Then they broke up into Serbia and Montenegro. In 2008, emerged Kosovo. And I'm like, wait a second. That's not the language I remember. Those aren't the titles that I remembered. I decided to make a point of it, and I said, you know what? If someone's going through that bad of a breakup and they're not on the cover of People magazine, I think I need to go there. So I went. I boarded a plane in May, and I thought I had done a comprehensive study of everything that I was going to see, and I had this idea that I was going to create this documentary film that was going to be, the best thing to ever hit Broadway and the United States of America and Times Square. I thought it was going to be everywhere. It wasn't. I showed up there with $1, a dream, and a backpack. and my hand held the camera. And when I got there, my creative juices evaporated, and my internal hard drive crashed. I realized that I was not part of their group. I realized that I could not communicate. I realized that my source of information into their culture was given to me by CNN, MSNBC, and the lovely Fox News. Not the best sources. I walked into that place with my own notion of what I thought I was going to discover, and I was wrong. Not only was I speaking English, I wasn't speaking their language. I was in a place where English wasn't necessarily welcome. And that troubled me. No one ever taught me how to communicate in a foreign language or what it meant to interact in a foreign language. Caution, when I say foreign, I don't mean a different language. I don't mean speaking English or Spanish or Chinese or Russian. I mean foreign, something that you are not part of, something that is so different and so bizarre that it shakes you, that when you go to give someone a handshake, you don't know how they're going to interpret that. That's what I was experiencing. So everything had to change. All of a sudden, I ran out of creativity. I ran out of anything to write, and I found myself in the midst of a personal storm. And I realized that things are going to have to change with the way I'm conducting this project. So I took a week, and I walked around town, and I smiled, pranced, danced, drank. I did everything they were doing. And when I wasn't doing what they were doing, I pretended that I was doing what they were doing. So while they were singing all their great songs in Serbian and Albanian, I had my headphones in to Rihanna and Jennifer Lopez, and I was dancing and having a great old time, although I really wasn't understanding what was going on. But I tried. I gave it a chance. And slowly but surely, I started to discover the human language. When I say the human language, I'm talking about the language of empathy. I'm talking about the language of emotional intelligence. I'm talking about the language of opportunity. I'm talking about opening your mind and sharing what you feel. Now, I know this may sound sappy, but it is very much true. And I'll give you guys one example of how I came to discover this. As you guys may know, there is severe conflict between the disputed Republic of Kosovo and Serbia. Most of these tensions are ethnic. And I was boarding a bus from Kosovo into Serbia. And as an American, if you do that, it's blasphemy. Don't do it. You will get stopped, and they will ask you to get off the bus. I was not expecting that. I thought that I was going to be able to get away with it. So I'm on the bus, and I have my satchel, full face of makeup, but why was I even doing that at the time? And it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden the bus comes to a stop, and the armed guard comes and says, "You, stand up." I was like, English. Passport. So I give him my passport, and he says, "Off." I'm like, that's different. So I get off the bus. And then he makes me open up my bag, and I have all this Albanian paraphernalia, like flags, T-shirts, magazines. That was not what I was supposed to have at that moment in time. So shotgun comes out, more like rifle, actually. And here I am, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I must have done something really bad. I have no reception on my American BlackBerry. What am I going to do? And the first thing that occurred to me was to cry. Aha moment. The human language. Cry. Everybody understands that's panic. So here I am, a semi-grown man, bawling for mercy. And you would think that there would be something comforting about this human language. But there wasn't at that moment in time, because as I looked to my right, I saw a dog crossing the border. Now you can only imagine how that made me feel. Not pretty. So I came back a year later. Many would think I would be traumatized, but I actually saw it as an intriguing moment. I thought that maybe I should study their culture a little bit more. Maybe I should take another look. Maybe I should adjust where I'm coming from so that I can meet them on their page. And I did. And I connected with a family that I had met the year before, and we lived together for a total of 9 months. Now, mind you, I did not learn how to speak fluent Serbian, but I learned enough. I learned their customs, their traditions, why they celebrate, what they celebrate, when not to celebrate. And I started gaining entry into this whole different life, a whole different way of thinking. And I started to change. I wasn't changing because I didn't want to. I actually wanted to change. It was going to help me become a better anthropologist, a better documentary filmmaker, a better producer. Because what I was troubled with was telling a story about war and having to pick a side. I couldn't do that. Who am I to pick sides in someone's history? I thought it'd be more clever to share stories, unique stories, stories that don't make the headlines on CNN, stories that don't make it to MSNBC or even Fox News, stories so unique, so compelling, that they're hard to verbalize. I stumbled upon an abandoned orphanage that housed 28 Albanian families in the Serbian side of Kosovo. No one had ever visited them before or documented their plight or their struggles. I met prisoners, political prisoners while there, who struggled with their most basic needs. No running water, no electricity. And it's 2000. Back then it was 2011. How is it that we can be separated by language so profoundly? And yes, language has a lot to do with it. Because if you're not spoken about, how can people care? How will you and I know? See, the very interesting thing about language and what I'm trying to understand is how selective and how matter-of-fact it can be. That if you are described, if you are categorized, if you're relevant, well then maybe we'll talk about you. Maybe we'll define you. Maybe we'll write a book about you. But whatever happens to those stories that do not get told? Whatever happens when someone isn't creative and crazy and has curly hair? Can we really expect anything? Do we expect anything? Do we expect to read anything else than a bestseller? Do we expect to watch anything else than what's on National Geographic? Do we want to? What language are we paying attention to? What communication strategies are we willing to engage with? Which memories are we regressing on? For me, I always regress to my childhood memories. I'm always trying to go on a new adventure and trying to discover something new, trying to land in a new place. Because I have one life, and I still haven't found my purpose. I haven't landed. I'm still flipping through that atlas. I still flip through the dictionary and often click along Wikipedia. Not everything there is true. But we can change it. We can change the language on Wikipedia. What I'd like you guys to realize, better so, what I'd like to share is that we all have a contribution in the language that we promote, in the language that we have in our homes, and the language that we take away when we go somewhere else. But it is how we share that language. It is how we communicate that makes a difference. You can go somewhere else and understand their culture and take it all in and have the time of your life. But how will you describe it when you come back? Or how will you perceive it when you see something different on television? I found my way. Sometimes I write books, sometimes I produce films. And today, I'm speaking to you. Thank you so much.